If you or your spouse are really going through some troubling times right now and you're contemplating divorce, and things are just seemingly out of control when it comes to emotions and conflict between you and your spouse, then we're certainly an office that's dealt with this on many occasions. These kinds of cases require you to have an attorney that's going to be thoughtful, who's going to listen to your issues, be empathetic with what you're going through, have a solid understanding of the facts and the area of law to help you work through this, because a high conflict divorce is one that can really last a long time. They can last up to a year, sometimes even 2 years, if the parties are really, really at each other's throats, so to speak. If you or your spouse are in a scenario where you're dealing with a lot of conflict with each other, whether that's over assets or debts or children or just emotions in general, you want to be sure that your attorney helps you keep your eye on the prize, as we call it, which is actually getting through the action. At Husker Law, we don't want this divorce to be the defining chapter of your life. We want this divorce to just be another chapter in the book of you. And we want you to get through this chapter as quickly and as effectively as possible. Divorces can really take an infinite number of directions. Some of them are very easy. Some of them can be very difficult. Some of them are very emotional. And some of them are actually happy outcomes for people. They just weren't good married, but they're still good friends. The cases that we see that are really high conflict are generally the ones where the parties are arguing about things that are not necessarily what we call the bigger prizes in the case. Are arguing about maybe smaller items, smaller debts, or more control. A lot of times the high conflict divorces deal with parties fighting over the principle of the issue. And what I mean is just wanting to show the other party that they were right. As an attorney, I try to tell my clients that litigating for the principle or just because is likely the most expensive thing that you'll do and the least rewarding thing that you'll ever receive. We try to keep you focused on what's really important. A lot of times, high conflict divorces deal with people that have very controlling issues, or you have two really dominant personalities in the relationship, and they're simply just two trains that want to keep colliding. You really want a law office that's not going to continue to fuel that fire, and you want somebody that's going to help you get through this thing instead of get buried in the weeds, where it just costs you a lot of time, it costs you a lot of effort, a lot of stress and anxiety, and it costs you a lot of money. If you feel like your spouse is going to say something about you that's just not true or portrays you in a bad light, it does happen, unfortunately. And so the ways that you can do this, though, or the ways that you can prevent this or combat this, is by drafting your own affidavits and providing them to the court. An affidavit is an out-of-court statement that you provide the court that is basically your side of the story or your side of the events, and explains why you're asking for whatever relief it is that we're requesting from the court, whether it be custody, whether it be child support, whether it be access to a home or automobile or bank account. One of those things. The affidavit is your words. It's your chance to let the court know how you feel and why you feel. The attorney that you work with will help you draft that affidavit, and then you'll submit that to the court. If you have a spouse that's saying a lot of bad things about you, you also have the ability to take their deposition. A deposition is a discovery tactic that we use to ask your soon-to-be ex-spouse questions about the case. These questions are done in a private setting with a court reporter that takes down and writes down everything that is discussed and said on the record. And it's a way for us to impeach what your spouse is saying, or basically prove that, hey, they're not a very reliable person. The things that they're saying about you are simply just being said to make themselves look better, make you look worse. They're not reality. Divorce is a very stressful time of your life. In fact, it's probably one of the most stressful things that most people will ever go through if you're faced with that challenge. Maintaining a positive mental attitude is likely going to be difficult, but it's very important to your mental health. And it's important to the people around you and the people that look to you for support, such as your children. Having a good support network around you, whether that be good friends, family members, or siblings that you can rely on, is important. Exercise, obviously very important to that aspect, not only your mental health, but your physical health. Speaking with a counselor or a therapist or mental health provider is really a good way to get some positive feedback and ways to cope with the stress and anxiety that comes with this kind of fairly traumatic event in people's lives. In some ways, when you're going through a divorce, it's sort of like just a general negotiation. Keep your focus on those really important or the primary factors that you really, really care about. When it comes to the other factors that are not on that list, then be willing to compromise, because I found over the course of my practice, in the course of years and thousands of cases that we've been involved in, that when parties are able to compromise, meet somewhere in the middle, and come up with an agreement that they themselves can believe in and trust in and walk away with happy, it's always much better than what somebody in the court or a judge is going to thrust upon them at the end of the case. Being able to come up with your own settlement agreement that you can walk away with, to me, is always the better option than taking it to court and litigating and leaving it open to a possible adverse outcome. If you have any questions about a high conflict divorce, contact Husker Law.